how many of you don't know that? You can take Harvard classes online for free, and what does that do for your resume, Khalima or Felicia, when you go and you got 5 other applicants, sitting in the room with you, and you guys are getting ready to interview, but you did the same amount of coursework, but you have the extra classes on that you didn't even pay for. What does that do for you?
If I could actually chime in and beat my friend up a little bit, because we really truly need to completely disrupt our education system, especially as it relates to African Americans. And I sit in meetings, and I sit in conferences, and it's always like, all right, you need to go to college, and then you need to do X, Y, and Z on top of that. Like, why are we forcing kids to go to a path that just is not the right fit for them, where they can just spend a year at an innovation center, right, or a co-working space, where they have access to VCs, where the conversation about innovation and people are creating products and creating change every single day. They're in the environment that they need to be without the cost. My mom's a PhD, so I can get, I'll get beat up by saying kids don't go to college, but I don't always think that that's the path for every single person. One of the kids that we were working with was, at one point he tried to light his school on fire, just like crazy, right? He wasn't supposed to be that kid that made it, and he didn't want to go to college. He wanted at one point to be in the fire academy, but he didn't want to go to college. And he came to us wanting a job. I said, instead of me employing you at an hourly rate, I would much rather pay for you to have a membership at a co-working space and spend a year there, at night and day. So now his regular conversations are like, hey, I had lunch and dinner with this VC. How many of our kids even know what a VC is? And the time that I spend in our community, and then I go over to $50,000 a year private schools in South Miami, where they're doing business plan competitions, and they can easily say, I have this app idea that I've been working on, amazing deck that they've been able to put together, able to articulate that very clearly, and then say, you know what? I'm like, how are you going to fund this? Well, my dad's a VC, right? But I'm not going to go to him for the money. I have 5 other venture capitalists that I'm looking at in order to pitch my business to. Our kids can't say that. And unfortunately, because our colleges are lagging behind, once they go through that 4 years, they may not still be able to say that until they get back into these innovation centers. So we really need to start looking at how to kind of reverse it in a way, and maybe that gap year is spent at an innovation center or a co-working space where that's the environment that they need to breed their success.
Let's talk about that, Khalima. Bishop Jakes just said something, and he said, how can we, the question was posed somewhere, how can we make a difference in lives of kids? And he said it starts with the home. And you just talked about, a lot of, kids in the inner city areas who may not have the access, or, we talk about how bad the schools are and kids who aren't performing well in school. Well, Khalima, I kind of get, antsy when people talk about, there's no good schools around, but there's so many resources available using the web. And yes, you don't get the social interaction, and then I think it will evolve with time. The internet's still in its infancy. But there are so many resources still available to people that we don't take advantage of. For instance, I go to the library once in a while, and one of the things that bothers me most about our library system, I don't know about anybody else's library system, but you can go in there and you can play Xbox and PlayStation all day long. And we got 50 or 100 computers set up, and I see most of the people sitting there on Facebook and playing, whatever these Candy Crush or whatever they're playing in the library. And I'm like, and then we talk about it's not available. So Khalima, talk to us about access, and excuses.
I still believe in school. I still believe in school. When a young lady comes into a school and she's missed breakfast, she's in her history class, and the teacher asks her, so what happened in 1492 that was so significant in Western history? And she says, I don't know, I don't care, right? See, school is able to pull that young lady out of her class, put her in a room, and ask her, where'd you get that black eye? And she says, from my mama. And then you're able to go, okay, what's going on? Let's see how we can help. And we want to make sure that you're in school in time, because you've got 3, 4 more years to survive this, and then you'll be able to go anywhere you want to go, and your mama won't be able to stop you.
Yeah.
See, that's what school can do. And when my brother was killed, I went to Dr. Lorraine Monroe. She's a world-known educator. She created Frederick Douglass Academy. And that's one of the first questions she asked me when I said, okay, I'm thinking about becoming an educator. She says, okay, well, you need to find out what the definition of school is. So one thing that school isn't the streets. And so many schools reflect the streets. I mean, you can even look at some of the teachers and how they dress. They have a very liberal attitude, and it's like, well, I'm just trying to be hip with the kids. It's just like, no, you're supposed to give them something different, give them something corny. Have the kids square dancing. Whatever it is that you can do in order to get their brains firing at all cylinders, and let them know that this isn't the street. See, I have a different background than from Bishop T. Jakes and several others, where home can look like failure. And I always say, and I talk to teachers, I always say that, when you're approaching this work to be a teacher, it's missionary work. And you have to look at our communities as third world countries. And no one tells a Peace Corps officer to go into a village in Malawi and expect running clean water, right? Some of these kids don't even have that in their home. And so, school can be that safe haven, it can be that space. And so, that's where sort of my heart is. Now, the problem with school, the problem with what's happening with our schools, and we have really great schools, we just don't have enough of them, is that the schools we have are built on a 20th century model for 22nd century kids. And so these are the kids who are reading, they're the architects of the 22nd century. Honestly, if you ask your kid, so do you think we'll still be using fossil fuel, oil, gas, to fuel our cars? And these kids will say, oh no, we don't even need cars. They're already thinking about the 22nd century. The problem is that, we have devices like these. And we say, oh, here's the computer lab. And the kid gets on the computer, and as soon as they get on there, wait, okay, don't touch it. Okay, sign your name. Okay, you sign your name. It's like, wait, don't touch it. Here's a curriculum that you have to follow. By the time they say, oh, screw this computer, I don't want to do anything with it. I just go play with my friends. That was our relationship with technology as a kid. It was the computer lab was this sort of, a protected environment, and you couldn't hack. You couldn't discover, you couldn't explore. And I think that's the problem, is that the 20th century was about our kids consuming. Like when you think about textbook companies, when you think about even, throwing iPads at our kids, they can't build anything on an iPad. They can't build anything on a Chromebook. They can't build applications on it. All those devices are used is to consume. And what you want our kids to do is to produce. You want to transfer our kids from becoming consumers to producers. And so one of the things I tell like a group of kids who are gamers, I say, oh yeah, you're playing that game? It's like, yeah, you play the game? I was like, yeah, I'll play the game too. Here's my gamer tag, And like, okay, cool, we can play together. I was like, yeah, but let me ask you something. How long have you been playing as a white man in that game? And they go, and they never think about it, go, yeah, that's right, they didn't really give us a choice. And I said, yeah, And so I was like, so how would you change this game? And then they go, yeah, well, it doesn't have to be a white guy. It could be a woman. It could be, a brother. It could be a sister. I was just like, okay, well, how would you change the music in the game? And they're like, oh yeah. I could, we could remix it like this and that. And so that's what you want them to start thinking, and that's the potential that school can be. 21st century schools for 22nd century kids.
Go ahead.
But what do we do in the interim of while schools are trying to figure it out? We graduate kids every single year that have no options. So when I say, we need to disrupt it, I'm not saying I'm anti-education whatsoever. Yeah. I'm definitely pro-education, but we need to do it in a way that it makes sense for our community. And that's where we're failing. And I think that's the beauty of bringing entrepreneurs into this conversation, because we're problem solvers. You know, if I have a problem inside my shop, I'm not going to be sitting there waiting for legislation to go up and down in order for a problem to be fixed. You know, we need real solutions, and we need solutions absolutely, like, right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important about this kind of conversation is you guys get the opportunity to think about opportunities. And I'm going to do something very risky. I'm about to throw out some stats, which is what you don't do on stage, especially when you haven't rehearsed it. In the year 2000, there's 361 million people on the internet. The year 2010, 1.9 billion people on the internet, 10 years. That same period of time, 2000 to 2010, the internet penetration went up 400%. Same period of time. And also college tuition went up 4 to 9% every single year during that time. 2000 to 2010, 361 million people on the internet, 2010, 1.9 billion. Same period, college, the price of college went up 4 to 9% every single year. It doesn't matter what business you're in, you can tell me at the drop of a hat what the internet did to your business over the last 20 years. Every single person can tell you what the internet has done to their business. It's revolutionized every business. Whether you're a janitor, because you're building different now, or you're trying to market to people differently, whether you're in the magazine business because you were printing paper, now you're putting more market share in digital stuff. So because these are entrepreneurs and they're looking for opportunities, or they have ideas and they're looking for ways to get those ideas out to the world, when you're talking about these types of numbers, with education, specifically education, with the growth in education and opportunities, at the same time, the things that's traditional, that cost is continuing to rise. What do you see as the opportunity for people like these who have ideas or are looking for ideas to be able to tap into this market?
I can give you an example. WinCode is actually a partner of ours with Code Fever. I sat in a meeting with them and was completely blown away by their business model. WinCode is a 9-week program for adults or youth, but mostly adults. It's $9,000 for this accelerated programming program, program. After the 9 weeks, they have companies that have signed on as partners for them that will direct hire their students because they are trying to they can't find people to fill those positions. They can't find people with those tech skills. So not only do they direct hire, but a lot of the companies that have also signed on say, we will reimburse you your $9,000, but then also put you into a job that is a 6-figure salary. So now when we talk about reforming education, that's a huge model and that's a huge opportunity for us when we're talking about skill sharing.
Yeah,
right? That's huge. That's revolutionary. Like, how many people are going to a 4-year college right now that can say, you know what? After I graduate, this company is going to pay my tuition back and give me a 6-figure job. And that's really where the other side is starting to innovate how they're learning and how they're training their people. And that's an opportunity where we need to catch up. But then that's also an opportunity for entrepreneurs as well.
I'm going to challenge Khalima on something. I'm not going to disagree because I do agree, but I'm going to challenge you just for the sake of entertainment for you guys. You talked a little bit earlier about the business of education and how you see it more as a social entrepreneurship and not necessarily the financial side. I'm going to challenge you just there for a second. We're talking about Jay-Z has this line, can't help the poor if I'm one of them, so I got to reach and get back to me. That's the win-win. I can finish the rest of the song, but I won't. So, and I have a mentor who also, because I get asked to sell a lot of boards and things like that. He said, look, go get some money, which I'm okay now. At the time, he said, go get some money. He said, because those opportunities will always be there. He said, the best way you can help that community you want to help is for you to be able to pull somebody out. And so when I look at, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to, as you might agree, I don't know. But when I look at, artists, people, the starving artists, I saw this guy giving a presentation on his art. He's the most dynamic artist I've seen in my community. And then he talked about in his presentation that his lights get cut off, and his water gets, I'm like, but you got this. So when we talk about, we do it for love, or we do it, I'm just going to see how you respond. We do it for love, and we want to save the world, and we want to save Billy, and we want to save that one starfish that's sitting on the seashore. How do we do that when we still got to pay the light bill? So we got to find a way to connect the two, because I can save more kids if I got money. You know, so when you talk about that, how do you respond to that?
Well, I think it's not a this or. We don't have to do the extreme of poverty and then the extreme of making that dollar our top priority. Because, you know, when you go through the funnel of Silicon Valley, by the time you're done, whatever product that you thought you were making for our kids is now being marketed to middle income to upper income white kids in private schools. By the time you're done, and so but at the same time, you also don't want to be on the other opposite side of the spectrum. I think it's just being able to have a mission, have something that you care for, that you love, and then you surround yourself with not only people who are also passionate about your mission or vision, but also you want to surround yourself with smart money. And then you want to discern who you take your money from. I've seen a lot of minority-led tech startups in Silicon Valley who their product barely ever got lifted from the ground. And that was because they took money from the wrong people. Because they were so antsy, they wanted to, they wanted to post it on their Facebook status. Hey, we just raised $1 million for a seed round, and they did, and then they're gone, and then they're now back to asking for more money. And so it's a combination of both. What I suggest is so the Cape Horn Center for Social Impact there in Oakland, and they have Cape Horn Capital, and they have their social impact wing. And what they do is that they make sure that, how I just said that, the network, how important that network is. Well, let's say you have people who are doing good, focused on social good, making an impact, and then you have those who are really trying to get to market a product and make sure that there's a return on that investment. And you place them in the same room. What happens? What happens is that the social entrepreneur begins to think, okay, yeah, this is how, this is what I can do to drive a sustainable business. And then the sort of the capitalist in the room says, okay, this is what I can do to make sure that I'm not doing evil while I'm doing business. And I think that kind of environment is best for what we can produce in the 21st century.
This is so fun, I'm gonna challenge you real quick. And I'm loving that I can ask you this, because I say this gently, you're the suit on the stage. And I preface it because I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna give you two more stats. I'm a data guy, so you gotta give me. These are facts. USA Today posted this middle of last year. 60% of college graduates in the year 2010 don't work in their degree field, number one. 40% of college graduates are working in jobs that don't require a degree. What say is that?
I think...
Mr. C. Sweet?
I have a son. I have two sons. My oldest son goes to Columbia University. He's a freshman. He's working at the White House this summer. He has no idea what he's going to be doing. Next summer he says, I want to go to Europe and work for Burberry. And so I said, well, what do you want to do when you get out of college? He says, I don't have a clue yet, but I want to be impactful. And I think a lot of kids are going to college with the idea that I want to be impactful because I don't want to do what my father or my mother did in their career. I don't want a 9 to 5. I really want to be able to change the environment around me. So a lot of kids go into college not knowing what they want to do. I.e., again, they have some opportunities to do internships that will give them exposure to what's out there. But many institutions require you to say your sophomore year, this is what I want to major in. And you've already invested countless hours, countless dollars, and you're trying to get out in 4 years. So you're not going to change your major because all of a sudden now you decided that you want to do something else. You're going to say, let me get through the door, graduate, get my diploma, and then go really find out what it is I want to do. Mm-hmm. The second thing I want to say, in reference to HBCUs, and I'm going to continue to go back to there because that's primarily what I know. My oldest son went to the oldest high school in the country, in Georgetown Prep. His sophomore year, second week, they give him a pledge card and say, we want you to start making donations back to your high school. He comes home and he says, Dad, I need $25. And I said, for what? They said, well, they want me to give back to my school every month. I graduated from an HBCU, gave the commencement address in 2012, and have never been asked to give money back. The way we can change our own environment is to invest in our own environment. If we're saying that we want to change the future, we can do it by changing our own education systems. So often we get out and we forget, or they forget that we went there, and they're saying we will continue to graduate students, and it becomes a pipeline for there to be no more return on their investment.
I'm of the belief that your gift will make room for you. And speaking to that point of the kid who when you have 60% of people don't work in their degree field. What that says to me is we pursue educational interests that somebody said there's going to be a job market for this when you graduate. So you should do that. But then you talk about people who have been in their careers for 8, 10, 20 years, and they're the most miserable people because they're doing something that they don't love, don't have the passion for. Steve Jobs said something in his Stanford commencement speech. He said, the minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and start dropping in on the ones that did. We wouldn't have the Apple computer if he wouldn't have dropped out and dropped into a calligraphy class. But something internally spoke to him and said, look, something about this doesn't speak to me as an individual. So how do we jive that, esoteric type of spirituality of curating your own educational experience with real world issues? When we have to make money, we got to put food on the table, we got to create opportunities. How do we do that?
So it was last year, and I was just selected to be an Equity Green Fellow in the category of Black Male Achievement. Black Male Achievement, the campaign for Black Male Achievement comes out of the Open Society Foundation. So me and several other fellows who were selected, we were in this room, and we were having this conference call with one of the spiritual advisors of President Obama. And it was right after the George Zimmerman verdict on Trayvon Martin. And so everyone was talking, and some of us fellows are sort of the techie fellows. It's about 3 or 4 of us. And everyone was talking about Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, and it has some sort of connection to it. The environment, health, and all these. And so and those of us who were techies, we really didn't have much to say. And that was because we knew that Silicon Valley didn't care. That there wasn't an emergency board meeting at Facebook or Google after the George Zimmerman verdict. So while this conversation was going on, I decided, I raised my hand. I said, I'm sorry that we don't have much to contribute, and I'm talking on behalf of my fellow techie fellows, because Silicon Valley doesn't want to ask if an app could have saved Trayvon Martin. And when I said that, the room felt silent. And then everyone was saying, well, yeah, that's a very, very good question. And then Sean Dove, who's the head of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, many of you know how fantastic Sean is. He immediately tweeted it, and then it got tweeted like hundreds of times, retweeted. And so I was onto something, and so I decided to come back to Silicon Valley, from the East Coast back to Silicon Valley, and then I met with my team, and I said, what if we had a hackathon focused on that question, if an app could save Trayvon Martin? And they said, okay, well, we're a software development company. This is new. And I said, yeah, this is let's just do it. It will engage the community. It'll be great. It'll be fantastic. So we did that. We put together this hackathon focused on Black Male Achievement, the first hackathon ever. And then for many of you who don't know what a hackathon is, a hackathon is something that happens regularly in Silicon Valley and even amongst Ivy League institutions, top schools, where you put a sort of a technologist, a coder, developer in a room with an artist, a designer in a room, and a problem solver, innovator in a room. and they have to produce something within 24 hours, 48 hours. And so they're very, very common. So even the like button on Facebook, that like started from a hackathon that Facebook had within its own offices. So they're great opportunities for innovation to happen at these hackathons. So if you think about, well, what would happen if I were to place Steve Jobs, Dr. King, and Smokey Robinson in a room and ask them to create something, then you can see how incredible hackathons can be. And so this hackathon...
Created Jesus.
And so we did it. We focused on Black male achievement, and we focused on that question: could Napa say Trayvon Martin? And it was an overwhelming success. It was huge. I mean, you know, NPR covered it, PBS covered it. People are still talking about it because we had 50 young Black males working alongside Facebook, Google employees, you know, techies, innovators, and they were able to produce apps like an emergency response app. So, for example, when Trayvon Martin was approached by George Zimmerman, he had a phone in his hand, if you remember, and they built an app where if you hit a button, it immediately sends an SMS out to your circle of friends, to anyone around you, because what they discovered is that sometimes we are attacked very near loved ones, but they don't know that we're being attacked or that we feel unsafe. And so they built that. They built an app to help those young people who are going through the juvenile justice system to remember their court date appointments. Because when you think about it, how many of us actually do remind ourselves without technology of appointments that we need to keep? So why is that different for young people who are going through the juvenile justice system? So that's their thinking. And so, and it was another app that a young man of color at a private school, he feels that he's isolated at private schools, and so he wanted to create some sort of social network that would connect minority kids at private schools so that they can stay connected and feel safer in these schools. And so, these kids built these apps with the help of adults. And so I think that's the kind of innovation that I'm really excited about. When we talked about, okay, what's not happening in schools, and I'm beginning to have the conversation with schools in order to have hackathons in open schools and beyond. So I think that's,
Yeah. If you would mind, if you do have questions, you can start lining up. I'm going to ask one more question, and we're going to start getting to some of your questions. So if you do have questions, there's a microphone in the middle of the room there. So Ron, I'd like you to start off with this. When we think about education, we're traditionally thinking from a non-profit type of space. But these are entrepreneurs who want to build businesses. So we can start with you, and if you guys have comments also. How do we, when we're going through that consideration process of developing an idea, in consideration that most education stuff comes from the nonprofit world, how do we consider that to be able to make a real business? And it could be a nonprofit business and be an entrepreneur. So how do we think about that?
Oh, I think one thing, and no disrespect to T.D. Jakes, because I just heard him say, talk about ideas. And I say, ideas may not be a dime a dozen, but they may be a quarter a dozen. The real rubber hits the road when there's implementation, there's execution, and there's follow-up. So I want to make sure that as we're thinking about building businesses, that it's more than just an idea. We all have great ideas, but it really is in the teamwork that you kind of surround yourself with to ensure that you have the resources that you need to be successful. Many African Americans don't see teachers that look like them. Many teachers are going into the profession not ever having been in a third world country. Many teachers are looking at apps to be able to give them the resources that they need to be able to be better teachers. There's an app called iPhD.com, and it really helps teachers. And I thought that was a great idea because we worked with Teach for America in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was really disappointed in what I saw. You see a lot of young white kids that say, I want to pay back my student loans. I'll go teach for 2 years in an inner city school and then leave and go get paid at a private school. And so you have teachers that are just really going through the system, not really being committed to the success long-term of our communities. but they want to learn, they want to know. And so this